5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. The only thing we have to fear is spirit.
Mile 18.
This is Endurance Nation.
Are you tired of just losing your fitness every year? Of getting out there on the open road come springtime and everyone else is still faster than you and you're not making progress? We understand. We created the Outseason program just for you. It's a 14-week protocol for triathletes and gravel cyclists with an opportunity to lock in through your Zwift workouts and focused training to unlock your potential by targeting functional threshold and high VO2 workouts with some endurance on the weekends. We build your fast before you're far. So by the time you get to the spring, you can turn down the fast and start adding some volume when the weather gets nice and unleash your endurance potential. Stop following the same program and hoping you get different results. Head over to endurancenation.us/outseason to get our 14-week program for one low price now. Hey there, it's Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation. Get all dressed up in my favorite sweatshirt here tonight. Maybe I get a little carried away with the bleach. Who knows? Maybe super cleaning around here sometimes. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about intermittent volume. This is my favorite topic right now in the beginning of the year because it helps set the stage for you to think strategically about your training up until your race. Now, what's like basic level? Let's talk basic for a second. Basic level is I'm going to do a race. And so my race is this far away. This is where I am. How much time do I have between these two places? And how do I get ready for my race? So people think about like going from A to B, right? Now, sometimes people go next level, right? They'll kind of go mid and they'll say, all right, well, I've got my race and this is where I am, but what am I going to do in the middle? Maybe I'll put a couple other races inside that, right? So I'll say, I'm going to do like an Olympic, a half, and then an Ironman, or I'm going to do a couple like maybe a century or a metric century, and then do a long gravel race, right? So I'll think about milestones, right? But what does advanced look like? Like, what do advanced athletes look like with their training? And this is where most athletes make a really big mistake. Most athletes feel as like, I've got the advanced is actually like my favorite pro. So I'm going to go find my favorite pro. I'm going to go to Instagram or Strava. I'm going to see what they're up to. And then I'm just going to replicate that, right? I know this approach. I've done it myself, right? It's really tempting to say, I think I could do that. I think I'd ride my bike that long, like zone one. How hard could it be? Newsflash. 5 hours in zone one on a daily basis is insanely hard, like harder than anything you've ever done. Effective for sure. So it's like, squatting every single day for like 2 hours, but is it debilitating over time? Yes. Like there's a reason why pros are pros and the rest of us are not. And sure, some of it has to do with their bodies, but the other part of it, their mindset. And I'm not even going to talk about the percentage distribution between ordinary mindset and pro mindset. And so when we think about advanced volume, that's where the concept of going intermittent comes in. Because for me, when I work with athletes like you, age group athletes, intermittent volume is the key. We can't always be at a high level, right? And we can't also expect to race at a high level, never having done any of that work. So how do we get in there? We don't have all the time to train. I can't dedicate countless hours and food shop around my workouts and like factor in recovery and Normatec boots or Hyperice boots and special nutrition, all just to get myself to that place. How do I actually balance it? That's where intermittent volume comes in. What it allows you to do is to actually strategically work in volume into your training program that allows you to get the benefits of the volume without all of the residual fatigue. It's almost like a barbell strategy where we spend the bulk of our time going shorter, higher quality, etc. So, suppressed training time, but high intensity, quality work, plenty of rest. On the other side, we do very low intensity, but we do it for a very long time, right? So that might look something like, training, 6 to 8 hours a week in the winter, and then once a month going out or indoors and doing like a 5 or 6 hour ride. That allows you to get all the benefits of the quality training and get in some of that volume as well. And you don't have to do the volume every single weekend. If you did it every single weekend, you wouldn't be able to do the hard training during the week. And that's exactly what most athletes do, especially those basic athletes. Like, I'm training for an Ironman. I'm going to do a century every weekend for like 12 weeks. What they're not counting on is that the quality of their week diminishes because of this workout on the weekend. But their workout on the weekend diminishes because of the quality work during the week. And they both diminish because you're doing it repeat after week. So your training plan looks great. When you model it out, you see your training stress and your training load go up and you're like, this is amazing. I'm going to be so fit. And then you actually plug yourself in the equation and you can't do it, which is why we talk about intermittent volume. So I've got some charts here to show you today. I'm going to bring them up on the screen. So bear with me as I do this. I'm going to be moving around between the different screens just to see if I can make it look just right for you, okay? All right, here we go. Let me come back, take this one. Okay, here we go. This first one here is the basic, okay? Make sure you can see it up here, the basic one. There we go. All right, in this case, in the basic plan for intermittent volume, you've got about 3 weeks of just basic load, and it doesn't matter what the numbers really mean. You're just getting a sense. So say this is your, all of your cycling for the week. So you got 4 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours, and then here you're going to go out and do like a ton of hours in this last week, right? This could just be your long ride of the week, right? You could be like, I'm going to do 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, and then I'm going to do 6 hours for a long ride last week. This gives you that high barbell variability. And this is a great way to start with intermittent volume as someone who hasn't done it before, which is just once a month, one Saturday a month. Be like, yeah, I'm going to get up early. I'm going to go to bed early Friday night, get up early Saturday, chow food and caffeine, pack food and caffeine, and then do this crazy ride. Maybe bring a couple extra bib shorts to your indoor training room, or plan on doing loops on your bike, whatever it may be. But clear the calendar for 1 day a week, right? Pretty straightforward. All right. How about the next version? What's the next level up? Okay. Next level up, we call this one the ramp. And these are varying difficulty. They're not necessarily one is the next one naturally after the other, but something we're going to think about. In this version, this is the ramp. To me, this is the hardest one to do, and this is what most people will think about. Generally speaking, from week 1 to week 4, that's how people visualize their season. What are we saying here? We're just going to put that on repeat. So you're getting 4 week cycles between your higher volume blocks, which is a consistent theme you'll see here. But the load between them is increasing. So it allows you to, basically build up and then go big and then rest. What's the weakness that I see in this structure? It's that you're going to be pretty tired by the time you get to week 3, and you've got to go even higher. And not just a slight degree higher, like 50% higher, you got to go like, 100% higher. You got to go up. Right? You're not just going up increments of 10 here, you're going up an increment of 20. And putting that on repeat, that leads to real fatigue. This I would categorize under certainly a much more advanced version of intermittent volume. All right, let's try a different version. This one's fun and not something that everyone thinks about, but is a fun way to do it, the drop. In this case, we just start out big. You just say, all right, you know what? I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. In a way, this looks a lot like, these first 4 weeks looks a lot like how you'd come off of a really hard rest period after a race. If you've done an Ironman 7 to 10 days ago, you probably rested really hard, and we come right back at it with some big volume, very low intensity, re-energize your system. In this case, low volume, high intensity. Next week, we're going to take it down by 30%, right? So if you did 10 hours or, let's say you did a 6-hour ride, we're going to take it down to 4 hours the next week, and then we're going to go 2 hours and 2 hours. Or do it again. What this does is it allows you to back up that big work, enter the big work block, rested, and then we back it up with just a little more. We're not just going all the way down to recover a little more. In a way, this would probably be sort of like a natural progression after the first one, which is the straight 4 weeks intermittent. In this case, you'd maybe do the next one where you say, I'm going to hang on to that fatigue for just a little bit longer, and a nice micro dose allow you to be successful. Okay, but another version. This one, variable. Okay, I almost called this one like bunches of fun, because why not have fun with your names? But there you go. Variable. In this case, you'll do 3 weeks, for example, a very steady state, and then you throw a big weekend. You do 3 weeks again, and this time you're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to kind of put 2 weeks together, and then come down, take 3, maybe do 1, 3, then 2. Again, this is a more of an advanced version. In this case, we're doing that outlier low volume big week or big session, and we come back to our typical 3-week normal progression, and then we go back and we're going to do 2 sessions back to back, but they're closer together. And again, I have weeks here. These could just be your rides, and these could be your long rides spaced out over a week. So long ride 1, long ride 2, long ride 3, 4th week. Long ride 1, long ride 2, long ride 3, 4th week, 1st week, right? Long ride 1, 2, 3, and so on, right? You get the concept. The idea here, again, is trying to determine how are we going to go through our year structuring work such that we can actually reap the rewards. And when you're doing longer volume, being capable of doing sustained aerobic work is critical to your success. And it's really hard to pack in during the week. Even someone like me, when my kids are older and I have more control over my schedule, I've got a great setup in the basement. I can do 2.5 hours a day in my basement, but there's a mental cost to it. I need some variety. And the longer rides actually helps me set up better for success because they're challenging me just as much mentally. They force me to dial into my nutrition plan much sooner than I would have otherwise. If I'm only training 2 hours on the weekends for my longest ride, I've got a century coming up in like 4 weeks, I have yet to really think about nutrition or experience the pain that causes me to go back and be like, you know what? I'm going to go check out that nutrition thing just one more time because that was pretty much suboptimal, right? So some of these longer sessions have a bigger impact on you, not simply from a physical standpoint, but a psychological one as well, a physiological one in terms of preparing you for positional fitness and perhaps even exposing cracks in your infrastructure game, whether it's physiology or with your bike infrastructure as well, or your run infrastructure or whatever your sport infrastructure may be. It's just fun to say infrastructure, but you can put a bad word inside the middle of infrastructure. Don't do it. Don't do it. Although you may use those bad words during some of these longer sessions, because I'm not going to lie, these longer sessions are hard. And when you start them out, whether you're doing it the first time or the fifth or sixth time for the year, you have to be ready. So how do we think about doing some of this intermittent volume when your game's been super low? This is where things get a little fun. This is where we get to do a little bit of cooking, all right? So this is what Coach P is all about. I'm all about bribing myself. I love to bribe myself. Like I used to sort of like get mad at myself and tell myself what to do. And then I realized that's no fun. Who wants to be the bad guy when you're also the other guy? That's the worst, right? So why not just be the good guy and then everybody wins? And so in this case, I'll do fun things like I'll go buy some Swedish fish. I love Swedish fish. I have a Swedish fish problem. Everything's red, not just because red's the fastest color, but because Swedish fish. And so I'll be like, oh, hey, I get a Swedish fish. Like, at hour 4, I can break open the Swedish fish, or hour 3, I like Coke or Diet Coke. I'll bring a Coke down with me and say, you know what? This past week, I rode like 3 hours or something like that. At like an hour and a half, or 2 hours, I was like, I get a Coke. I'm not going to drink the whole thing, but like, I just got to get a sip of it. I give myself a reward, right? That's like number one. So I sort of planning myself nutritionally or caffeine for the reward side. Second, I also break it up. So when I did that 3-hour trainer ride inside, I actually got off every hour and just stretched. Just for a minute or two, just got off and stretched. Hamstrings, hips, lunges, upward facing dog, all those things, just to kind of give myself a break. It's just a couple minutes, but it adds up over time. We don't need to be riding, never stop pedaling for 7 or 8 hours. That's race day. We're on our way to race day. If you overdo these early training sessions, don't make them fun. Don't keep yourself on the course. You're just going to resent the training. It's going to be super hard. And like, we want you to be hard and tough on race day, but hard and tough on race day isn't about being hard and tough the other 364 days a year. You can be like goofy, have fun, mess around. On race day, it's a mindset switch. It's like being like, it's game on. Like those, I want what you have and I'm going to go get it today. There's no correspondence to being like, I've been suffering and being in misery for the last 3 years. So now I'm really going to do it. That's a story that we all tell. So don't feel like you've got to be super restrictive and negative or sort of like internally badass in order to be badass on race day. Not at all. Some of the nicest people I know put on Lycra and become like serial killers out there on the course because they just love racing and it's just in their adrenaline and they don't need to worry about it. So worry about your race day persona. We'll definitely work on that one in race day, right? Or maybe in like a century ride or a marathon before your ultra or whatever it is you're doing. We don't need to do that to yourself every day inside training. Instead, inside training, we want to make really smart decisions that advantage you. In this case, intermittent volume is one of those secret weapons that you can use. So I gave you some chart ideas here. A simple baseline play, if you haven't done before, it's just one long session a month. Okay. So if you've been averaging like 8 hours a week in the winter and with our training plans, 8 to 10 hours a week, that means your weekends are typically, an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours each day. So just go ahead, the first weekend and just put those 2 hours to one. Be like, I'm going to put 4 hours on or 3.5 hours on a Saturday and Sunday I get a complete rest day. And then I'll go back to my regularly scheduled week. Just see what happens. If you do that twice, you go through that progression twice, you've been through 2 months, now we're into month 3. All right. How do we want to do this differently? We could instead this time do instead of one like 4-hour day, let's do 2 3-hour days and then go back to your regular week. You've already done a 4-hour day, so a 3-hour day is not as hard, but you got to do it again tomorrow. A little bit harder for you, right? Maybe that's like month 3. And then month 4, we say, let's do it back to 4 hour again because we're getting into the longer territory. We'll do 2 hours the next day. So we get 6 hours on the weekend, right? We start messing around like that. By the time you hit the open road, not only have you reaped the benefit of all the quality work that we do in the out season or winter training or indoor training or whatever you're following during the week, Monday through Friday, but your weekend persona, just crafted one weekend a month, is starting to transition you earlier into being prepared not only to go long, but to do the work to go long by virtue of the lessons learned during these early sessions and the mental preparation you'll have. Race day success is all about being your best in terms of peak fitness. And that's not just about being tough, like I said, or being the fittest person there. It's also about being the most rested and the one who's been the most engaged this whole time. In order to check those last 2 boxes, we need to use something like intermittent volume to keep ourselves engaged, have fun, build fitness, and be ready to have a kick-ass rest of the year. If you do it right, not only are you fit for your race, but you're actually fit enough and still interested enough that you want to work in a couple extra things. I always know that I did the season right. If I get through my big race in August or September, and I'm like, hey, it's September, October, November, let's go. I want to do something. I knew I did it wrong after my big race where I was like, that bike stays in a box and I don't want to see it for 8 weeks. Was I fitter? I don't know. Was it worth it? Definitely not. So always have a little bit left in the tank. Be smart. Use something like intermittent volume. If you've got questions and you're on the team, you can obviously find me on Monday night office hours or Wednesday night or just anytime inside the community. If you're not on the team and you're seeing this on social media, head over to endurancenation.us. What the heck are you waiting for? We do stuff like this all the time. We help our athletes be better by being smarter. Smarter athletes are faster athletes, and gosh darn it, they're just great to hang around with as well. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you soon.
Endurance Nation.
Hey, podcast fans. I know you love the podcast because here you are, you're listening to it and you're still listening to me talk right now. Did you know you can get content just like this in your inbox once a month? We send out a great newsletter. We call it, guess what? The Unfair Advantage. That's right. It's our information to you, something that separates you from the competition. If they're not here, then they don't know. But if you are here, then now you do. Zero excuses. If you go check us out online at endurancenation.us/newsletter, it's your opportunity to enter your email address, sign up for these updates. They come once a month, sometimes twice a month, depending on my race schedule. And it's your chance to get insider information that's going to help you become a better, smarter athlete. Don't miss out on this chance to get ahead of the competition. It doesn't cost you any money, and it's not a ton of work. It's just your email address. That's endurancenation.us/newsletter.
For more information about Endurance Nation, visit us online at endurancenation.us. The provided music is from the Podshow Podsafe Music Network. Check it out at music.podshow.com.